to another episode of Do the Damn Thing, the show where we talk to solopreneurs, entrepreneurs, people just out there launching personal brands at all stages of their journey to try to figure out exactly how they did the damn thing. And today I am very excited to have joining with me Jennifer Nguyen. Hi, how are you?
I'm good. How are
I
you?
got Justifer
I
from
think I'm gonna. I think
Justin
I'm gonna
Timberlake on
change my name.
yeah, Justin Timberlake on the brain. Anyway, hi, thank you for joining us. And
My
Jennifer
pleasure.
is a writer who is launching her own blog, which I think you expect to monetize, but we'll get to that, called Boundless Human. And the reason why I found your story so compelling is because we kind of do similar things in a different way. Like we seek out people who are interesting and inspiring and have a story to tell, right? And kind of tell those stories in different ways. But I saw some alignment there, so that's why I was thinking about this. But why don't you
So,
tell everyone in your own words what it is that Boundless Human is?
boundlesshumanblog.com. It's an idea that I'd been sitting on for about like 2 years. I had written stuff in my notebook. I wrote stuff on my phone because I'd always like I'm always interested in people and their stories, right? Some people are like good with their hands, some people are technical. I think I'm interested in people's stories. And a few years back, I had worked for a digital magazine, and it was something I was thrust into and I'd never done before. But I found that I really enjoyed interviewing people from everywhere. It was like chefs, entertainers, authors, actors, whoever. And I really enjoyed that. So I did that for about a year, and then I started doing other stuff with my copywriting, as we'll talk about digital marketing.
Yeah,
And so recently, taking that, knowing that I enjoyed that, and just knowing that I have that curiosity about people, probably the same way that you do, I thought, well, I want to do something with it, right? Like I want to light that fire under my ass and actually do something about it, not just sit on those ideas. Um, and so I launched in January. I've been working on it for a few months before that. And the idea is like, why I started was I had this selfish desire to just pick the brains of people that I'm interested in, right? But
yeah.
doing that just for myself, there's no point in that. Like I want to share that with as many people as I can so people can get inspired to be the absolute best versions of themselves, hearing the stories of all these other great people, whether they're athletes, authors, creatives, whoever they are.
Totally.
So yeah, that's pretty much at the heart of it.
So interesting because I literally yesterday read an article that was like, I interviewed 100 of the world's top, businessmen, and this is how they saved all their money for retirement. You know what I mean? Like they went
Yeah,
pick the brains of people that inspired them. They compiled it into one, but there's so much value in that, right? There's so
yeah,
much you can learn from others, and just going out there and probing these brilliant minds is fascinating. I love it,
yeah.
obviously, and so do you. So how do you? And by the way, I always forget to tell people this. We are live on Facebook. So if
Yes.
you have any questions that you would like to ask, just go ahead and put them in the chat, and I will do my best to peek over and get to them. Or if you have comments, whatever, we'll throw them up on the screen. How do you find the people? What are your like metrics or milestones? What makes you decide like this one's really worthwhile?
So yeah, that's a great question. I think because it's new, right? So I can't go and like I'm going to talk to Elon Musk right now, and I don't have anything on my website, right?
Right.
So the easiest and the smartest thing to do for me, like at least in my mind, was to go to my own network and look at these incredible people that I've already worked with or spoken to, and already have established that trust. So, the people that I have on there right now is the CEO of a consultancy for social entrepreneurs, and also the executive director of an NGO that fights against genocide and mass atrocities. So, right there with those two people, it's such a wide range of interests and specialties. So I have other people in my network that are on my list that I would like to reach out to, but I've already reached out to a few people that are outside of my network. I reached out to them on Instagram, for example, and they're like, yeah, awesome. I would love to be a part of this. And I had something to show them, right? Like it
Right.
wasn't just an empty website. I had to build that content up first. and just to be genuine in my message, to tailor it to them and to show my interest in what they do because I am genuinely interested. I'm not going to reach out to someone that I don't like. It
Right.
doesn't align with the mission, right? So
Right.
yeah,
Yeah, I mean,
sort
and that's, I think that, doing the show over the weeks, over the months, that I found that that's kind of similar in whatever industry you're in. Like, I'm
yeah,
a interior designer. I'm going to start with my
cool,
friends and family. You know what? Or I've got t-shirts to sell. Well, let me start with the people I know. I think that's a lot, it's a common ground there. And even that's what I did for this show. The first few episodes were like my friends,
yeah,
and then I happen to know some entrepreneurs, and then I got a couple in my pocket. Now I can
yeah,
point people to this website, and the same thing too. I reached out on Instagram. I found you on a Facebook group, so you just
yeah.
kind of really monopolize, or what's the word I'm trying to look for? Anyway, make best use of. You're the
Yeah.
writer. You're the writer here.
No,
Your
you're putting me on the
communities.
spot. I can't do that.
And that's a big thing that we talk about at Hipcast Society a lot, is like it's so important to have a community
Yeah,
and to build, a support network for your emotional well-being, but also for
of course.
business endeavors, right? Like,
Yeah,
you need to have the help of others. Nobody
yeah.
can go it alone. So how do you plan to monetize this? Like, right now, I know it's sort of a passion project, but you
Yeah.
mentioned earlier that there is a plan to make some money off this. So how
Yeah.
do you go about making money off of a passion project or blog?
Yeah. So, because it's a blog, it's a website, I do want to perhaps do some like affiliate marketing, maybe some ads, are, you know, as long as it's not too like, it doesn't interrupt the flow and the user experience.
Right.
I do want to build a community out of it, a newsletter that people actually want to read, and build a podcast.
Yeah.
So I think, yeah,
It's all about the
people were
video.
telling me, yeah, people were telling me like, make this a podcast. I'm like, I know, but like, this is what I know for now, but for sure, like a podcast is going to be in the future. So all those things, will help with the monetization and just doing a lot of research on that because it is like I'm a copywriter, so I work with. I've written for a lot of websites,
Hmm.
but it's the first time I'm building a website from scratch and doing it on my own, making money from that on my own while
Yeah.
doing something full time, right? Um, so those ideas, and then also I know that the possibilities are endless. Like I definitely don't want to close any doors. So once I explore those avenues, I do my research on okay, how do I market this and monetize this, make it a long term thing. I'm sure I'm going to discover even more ideas
Oh
on how to do
yeah,
that.
absolutely. I want to talk a little bit about you before Boundless Human.
Hmm.
You are a copywriter, and
Yes.
I'm assuming you do this on a freelance basis, right?
Yes.
So, for those out there who are interested, because freelancing, in my experience, is tough.
Yeah.
So,
That's the one sure thing about
really,
it.
really tough.
Yeah.
So, like, as a freelance writer, how do you go about finding work for yourself and getting those gigs? Like, how do you make it as a writer?
Yeah, it's tough. So I I didn't always freelance. So I've had, I went through university, I did some internships, I had some full-time jobs, and then I would freelance during those full-time jobs, and then eventually I did freelancing full-time. So within that, going to university and my professional career up in this till this point, there's always an opportunity to network, as we talked about, right?
Right.
And not looking at people as opportunities, as like objects, but just get yourself out there and communicate with people. And that I think people don't realize when they're first getting into it how important that is because I've had people just come to me like, oh, we worked together on this thing, or we went to school together a while back. Do you want to work on this project together? So that's one thing, like just building that network.
Totally.
Um, but that takes time, right? So it's like that's one thing that you build over time. And then in terms of actually like, what can I do right now? You can reach out directly. I reach out sometimes directly to companies that I'm interested in and sending them, a tailored message. I'll go interesting place to find jobs actually for writers and other freelancers is Reddit. I've had a lot of jobs on there too.
Really? I
Just
wouldn't have
yeah,
thought. All right.
yeah. There's subreddits where like I think there's one, I'm not sure if it's actually called this, but like you can hire an artist, you can hire writers, freelance for hire. Like, so if anybody out there is, a freelance writer, designer, developer, anything like that, I would recommend going on Reddit. And another social media outlet is Facebook groups, because there'll be specific Facebook groups for different types of specialties. So if you're looking for, let's say you're someone that's looking for a designer, you can go on those groups and say, I'm looking for a designer that can do this, this, and this for my company. And then you'll have all these talented designers like apply for that contract or job. So yeah, the networking, yeah, use social media for sure.
Right.
Depending on your industry, it doesn't always work like for other types of jobs. And yeah, those are the
Yeah.
two main things for me.
Now,
Yeah.
it's interesting because, I live in the world of marketing, and
Yeah.
the most important thing, in my opinion, is the copy, right? That
Mhm.
headline that grabs them, that
Yeah.
story that reels them in, the call to action that like inspires them to do something. So, like, do you have areas that you write, like as long form blogging, your specialty?
Mhm.
Or do you also mix it up and like write Facebook ads and things like that?
I like to mix it up because I think I'm honest, and I say I get bored easily. So that's why part of the reason why I'm freelancing is because I can work with so many different interesting companies and people.
Right.
And then with the types of content itself, yes, I like to keep that interesting. I would say that my portfolio leans to websites, landing pages, and blogs.
Yeah.
So that's my kind of my main focuses, but I definitely enjoyed writing newsletters, ads. I recently did some Facebook ads, actually, Google ads, yeah, social media posts,
Yeah.
whatever's online. I like to write that.
Right on. Now, speaking of social media, and I want to kind of answer this question for both your freelance life and your for Boundless Human. How important is it for you to have like a social strategy? Like, do you have like the Jennifer, the freelance copywriter Instagram profile where people can go and like learn more about you? Like, is it more just a website? Like what role does social media play in both of those aspects of your life?
So I'd say for the freelance copywriting aspect, LinkedIn.
Yeah.
I've gotten a few jobs off there because some people will sometimes post, I'm looking for a freelance writer, and that's that professional network. So I like to share my LinkedIn and my website. In terms of Instagram and Facebook, I know other writers do that, and that works for them. But for me, I enjoy keeping it to LinkedIn and the website. But again, it depends on who you are, because different things work for different people. Because some people will, for example, niche in certain industries, and maybe Instagram works better for that. But for me, I definitely utilize LinkedIn and just sending my portfolio. Portfolio is probably my biggest tool.
Yes, we're going to take a look at your website right now, and it's very well done. So, did you hire someone to build this website for you, or do you just happen to know like how to build beautiful websites?
Oh, I developed it myself. No, I'm kidding. I got a theme on Squarespace.
Okay.
Squarespace is super clean. It's easy to use for someone who's not, technical, who doesn't know how to develop a website. So yeah, it was Squarespace, and that theme was actually for designer, but then I just turned it into for someone
Yeah.
for copywriting. Like, why not? So yeah,
I think my personal website, the theme was for like a real estate agent. I'm like, yeah.
I don't care. I'm gonna do my own thing.
Exactly. So while we're talking about tools, people always want to know, and you're probably going to say Canva because everybody says Canva, but what kind of tools do you use to run both of your businesses?
Canva, yes, I love Canva. It's friggin' awesome. Maybe, I don't know if people have said this before, but Google Drive. That's like for my personal, my professional. I love Google Drive. What else? I've used for my logo, I used Fiverr. That can be hit or miss, but Fiverr, those like freelancing platforms.
Yeah, and I was going to say Upwork.
It can work.
Upwork has writers as well, doesn't it?
Yes, and actually, I should have mentioned that when you were asking me about how I found work. Upwork was actually, that's well, it started, I started on something called Elance, and then Elance combined with Odesk to make Upwork. And then I was using Upwork for a few years.
Right.
So that was where I got my start, but I definitely didn't want to stay on there because of the commission. It's glitchy. There are so many problems with it.
Yeah.
A lot of problems with it, but you can, like, it can be a very positive thing for building your portfolio, and just building that client base, especially when you're starting out. If you can get on the platform, because there's so many freelancers now, it's actually difficult to get on the platform. So
I didn't know.
yeah, my advice with that is to definitely just build multiple streams of where you can get work and not just rely on one. Yeah.
Right. And I mean, honestly, I tell people that in their, no matter what their job is, then you should have multiple revenue streams in your
Yeah,
life.
yeah,
Like you could get fired from your job, the stock
exactly.
market could crash, wherever it is, like you got to have it coming in from all sorts of places. So that's just good advice.
Yeah, in general.
You mentioned earlier newsletters. Do you have an email
Mm.
platform that you just love?
I've used what I'm using for Boundless Human right now is MailerLite. I just was reading a lot of different blog posts comparing different platforms. I haven't used it too much yet, but I've seen a lot of good reviews on it. I've also used MailChimp in the past. I think that's very easy to use.
Yeah.
I'm not so sure if how good MailChimp is for when you have lots of subscribers, because I
Well,
haven't.
then it's not free anymore.
It's not. Yeah.
Yeah, it's only free
I,
up to like the
yeah.
first, I forget, 1,000 or something like that.
Yeah. I don't mind paying if if I have 1,000 people, I definitely, should be paying at some point. But
Yeah,
yeah, MailerLite, Mailchimp. There's also ConvertKit. I heard
yeah.
some good things about. There's so many out. I think even HubSpot. They
Oh
have
yeah,
some.
there's so many. That's why I always like to hear what people's favorites are. And
Yeah,
a lot of times it's just this is what I know, so this is my favorite, and then
yeah,
people have actually dabbled in multiple ones. So
yeah.
very interesting. So is this your first time branching out to do something like on your own like this? And if so, you're nodding yes, so I'm going to go think that's a yes. And
Well, okay.
is it?
Well, if I was nodding yes because I had my 9 to 5s. I had the Monday to Friday desk jobs, which was great. Like I would be open to that at some point, but then I branched off into freelancing. So I guess that would count, because you're essentially like building your own micro business, and
Yeah.
you're only one person. You don't have like departments, but you're doing everything,
Yeah,
like,
that's our whole audience.
right? So yeah,
Micro businesses.
yeah. So the transferring from 9 to 5 to freelancing, and then building Boundless Human.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
and let's expand on that a little bit. So, we always talk about at HipCat Society, you have to define your edge. Like,
Yeah.
what's your USP or unique value proposition, or like, how do you differentiate yourself in a like super saturated market? Because every
Yeah.
market is so saturated, So, before you decided to launch this website and this endeavor, did you do market research to say like there's a need for this, or did you just say, hey, I'm going to do it with my own spin? Like what was your thought process that got you from over that fear? Like so many
Hmm.
people are like, I want to do it, but
I think that was me at some point.
it was probably most people.
Yeah.
So how did you get past that? Like what gave you the confidence to be like, this is going to work?
Um, I'll be honest, I didn't do like intense market research on it. However, I don't think there are some websites that are doing similar things, like interviewing people from different disciplines and getting, their understanding their message and their story.
Mm-hmm.
But I think what can differentiate me is I have that like this like curiosity that's been there forever, right? So I need to like satiate that somehow and ask the right questions for those people, and maybe explore topics that people may not think about on a daily basis, just to shed light on that. And in terms of that fear, I mean, that's why I sat on the idea for like 2 years, right?
You're not
But
alone.
it's something that just I kept coming back to it. So I said, I'm gonna do this. Like, if I'm gonna monetize it in the future, but that's not like that's not necessarily driving me. It's because I'm interested in it. So if that interest is always there, I think the money will come at some point as long as you put the hard work into it. So
Yeah, for sure.
yeah,
I mean,
that's what it was pretty much.
it's like if you're doing something just for the money,
Yeah,
probably going to
that's
fizzle, right?
yeah,
Like
exactly.
you got to have the passion first to sustain it, especially in the
Yeah,
world like that you're in of solopreneurs or, micro businesses. That's my new term of the day. Um, you have to, it has to be born out of a genuine, true
yeah,
passion. So, and,
yeah,
and that's what's going to make it fun, right?
yeah. I enjoy it. Like uh, it's not making me money at the moment, but I enjoy it, so I'm going to keep doing it to get to that point, right? So
Yeah, no, no, absolutely. So as you started this, when I talk to various solopreneurs, I find that a lot of times they're like, "Well, I didn't know it was going to be like this," or like like
yeah.
there's so much more involved than they thought, or it's so different than they thought. So have you found that on your journey things are not quite as you expected, harder, easier?
Oh, like 200%. I think with the copywriting thing, I thought it was going to be easier than it actually was, but you're going to get rejections or sometimes people won't even answer back to you.
Hmm.
So, and there's sometimes where you have a lot of work and then you have no work. And so it's finding that balance. So you have to, I think the main thing for me I learned is that I have to like just keep going for it, keep being resilient. Like doesn't matter if you're failing this day or this week or whatever, if you love it and you're going to keep working hard at it, you'll get to that point where you want to be at some point. And with the blog, um, more specifically, I think the technical things were kind of catching me off guard. I didn't
Right.
know I would run into this technical issue with the CMS and the website, or finding a designer for the logo, for things like that. I'm sure there will be more things in the future as it grows, but at this point, yeah, it was like the technical things and getting it up and running and the logistics.
Totally. So
Yeah.
you came at this from a non-technical background,
Yeah.
right? Which I find very inspiring because I think that technical aspect is what a lot of people are afraid of. They
Yeah.
think online business and it's like, well, I can barely open a web browser. You know what I mean? And so it's nice to hear that you are self-taught, your website is beautiful, and that you just kind of overcame whatever areas of knowledge that you were lacking in. You
Yeah.
kind of just so are there classes or mentors, or there's always a guru, right? Or
Always.
like who how did you learn how to do the things that you didn't know how to do?
Honestly, there's YouTube, there's
Yeah.
blogs, and paying for tools, like the website, right? I can't develop a website to save my life, so I'm just gonna, pay for this theme or pay for Squarespace or WordPress or whatever, and I don't mind doing that because it just saves me that much time. And there are things where like it doesn't make sense for me to hire someone to do this at this point, so I'm like, okay, I'll just go on YouTube, I'll go online and I'll Google this because or even Facebook groups. I ask, okay, I'm running into this technical issue. Does anyone know how to help me? And people are very willing to help online. I don't
Oh
help
yeah.
strangers online. It's awesome. So there's so many resources out there. Like there's just so many. And I will say though that because I, I I work online a lot. Like I work with a lot of technical people in the past, so that does help because I have that proximity to it. It doesn't necessarily mean that I can execute on it myself, but having that proximity definitely helps. But even if you don't, like you could still learn that. You just have to put in the time.
Yeah, totally.
That's for
There's a
sure.
great story about the founder of Geek Squad, who
Mm,
Geek Squad, for those who don't know, they come and like fix your computer and do technical stuff and teach you how to do technical stuff. And yet the Geek Squad YouTube channel is filled with thousands of
yeah.
free videos teaching you to do exactly what
Yeah.
they get paid to do. And so the founder was at a conference and somebody's like, what are you doing? Like, what kind of business plan is that? You're giving away for free the same thing that you charge people for. And the guy was like, look, there's a million people and a million ways that they're going to learn how to do this, but when there is something that they need to pay for, they're going to come to me. They're going to come to that
Yeah.
person who provided them so much value and established so much trust, that I will get the job versus someone else. So I just thought that was
Yeah.
it's true. I mean, you can learn anything on the internet these days.
Yeah.
And even times
Open heart surgery. I don't know, maybe
you
one
probably
day.
could. I don't know. I've never looked it up. Now I have to. But there's even times when I've paid for courses and then
Mhm.
been like, oh, that's the same as the free thing that I
Yeah.
downloaded from so and so. Not saying that's so true with all courses. Some are absolutely worth the money. But yeah, totally. That's a great resource. We are running out of time, but I just wanted to talk about you going forward and your
Mhm.
wish list, right? So
Mm.
who are some people or types of people that you really love to get? I mean, because I'm going to go in. You've got this story called "The Woman Who Penned Down Mexico's Drug Cartel." I'm all about that. I
Yeah.
want to read all about Mexican drug cartels. Just tell a little bit about me. So,
Yeah.
like, what other kind of?
Narcos on Netflix.
This is probably a big one, right? Is that a popular one on
Yeah.
your site?
Sorry, I was just saying, you should watch Narcos on Netflix. Maybe you've
Oh,
already.
yes, I do.
Yeah.
Is that a popular blog on your site?
That was actually for the digital magazine.
Okay.
I got to interview that author who, yeah, she went into like government corruption and the like drug cartels. So yeah, that was some crazy stuff. So those are definitely the stories that I'm interested in. People that are trying to like better the world in some way. I'll give you an example of someone on my list that I want to reach out to. It's scientist slash researcher in the field of psychedelics and how that helps people with certain mental health issues. I think that's fascinating because it's changed so much the way people view that psychedelics
You mean
versus
like
10 years ago.
LSD?
Yeah, LSD, like mushrooms, MDMA,
Yeah.
and people are using that to.
What's that book? The
Um,
Electric Kool-Aid Acid Test, right? Where
oh, I
they
haven't read that,
Oh
but maybe
yeah.
that should be on my list.
Yeah, and then I was watching, we're totally going off here, but I'll think also on
Okay.
Netflix there's a show called Ratchet based on Nurse Ratchet from
Yes.
One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. And the
Yes.
doctor there is into, psychiatric medicines and giving his people LSD. Doesn't work out for them in the show, but
I think yeah, that's a little bit sure,
highly
but
recommend it.
yeah.
Okay, well that's cool. So how can people? How can they reach out to you? How can they find you if they either want to be interested or want to be interviewed, or they have someone interviewing, or they just? I've been telling people all show long how to get to your blog, so they should know that. Plus, I'll
Awesome.
have all the links below. But if they have an interesting story to tell, how can they find you?
So boundlesshumanblog.com. You can go to the contact page,
Great.
or you can email me directly at jen@boundlesshumanblog.com. You can find me on LinkedIn too. My name is pretty common, but my LinkedIn picture is the picture that you use for the podcast. So if you see that, that's me.
There you
Um,
go.
I'm a Boundless Human blog on Instagram as well,
That's it.
and Boundless Human on Twitter. So
Great. Well,
yeah,
hopefully you get some more interesting stories. There's so many out
yeah,
there, and I love
yeah,
that you really don't have limitations. You're just find
yeah,
some. It's not like, oh, I only want to talk to marketing people or whatever.
yeah.
So it's awesome, and I'm sure we will be following you. And again, all of her links and information are down in the areas wherever they show up on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, wherever it is. But thank you so much, and we are
My
absolutely
pleasure.
big fans, and we're going to be following you.
Yeah, likewise.
All
Thanks
right.
for having me.
Bye bye.
Appreciate it. See ya.